All right, guys. So the National Association of Realtors just did something I didn't think they were going to do. I was under the impression they were going to fight it for years, but they agreed on a settlement from the lawsuits that were regarding our commissions. And I brought a good friend of mine and mortgage guru, Mr. Mike Berrios, because I wanted to ask him on what he foresaw on the mortgage side. So let me kind of set the groundwork here. So a few things are going on. One, commissions will no longer be on the MLS. I mean, that really isn't an issue because you can still call, but they no longer will be visibly. That's supposed to encourage equal showings and that kind of stuff, where people will no longer not show a house that's paying $1 for commission, for example. The second thing is the buyer's agreement. Now, this is where Mike comes in. Here in California, we have buyer's agreements, but we really don't use them. In other states, they do. In essence, a buyer agreement is now like a listing agreement for a buyer. You're not going to be able to jump from agent to agent, and you're going to have to put a dollar amount to that. And so let's say, for example, John wants to buy a house, and John signs a buyer agreement with Paco. And after July 1st, which is all this kicks in, I go show a house, and I make an offer, and I ask for, we'll say 2% commission for the seller to pay me, because now it's going to be negotiated in the contract. And seller says, nope, I'm only paying my seller commission. I am no longer paying the buyer. If your clients want it, they need to pay you. So now you as a buyer have to come to an agreement with me. And there's a lot of gray area what that looks like. You know, what are the limitations on that? And Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac already have limitations on the amount of credit you can give or fees you got to put down and all that kind of stuff. So anyways, Mike, so we have a buyer, and now they want to buy a house, and they're not going to pay the commission, and now they need to negotiate with me. How does this affect the loan? What does this mean? Big picture, what do you think is going to happen?
Well, I think first of all, it has to be approved through the courts, right? It's a settlement, but there's still some process that's going to happen. It's going to take but as a lender, one of the things that most people are seeing on social media and everything is the buyer's going to have to pay for their own buyer's commission. And as it is, a lot of buyers have challenges coming up with their own down payment and closing costs. And now that you stack on a third layer of buyer's agent's commission, how is that going to work? So currently you have to source and season your down payment, your income, and et cetera, right? So now how many people is that going to take out of the market if they also have to pay the buyer's commission? So right now, Paco and I were just kind of assuming, hoping things go a certain way. We're not sure certainly exactly what's going to happen. I don't see the agencies saying, agencies meaning Fannie, Freddie, FHA, et cetera, that the buyer has to come in with it. I'm anticipating and I'm thinking that there's going to be certain exclusions. So for example, right now on FHA, a buyer is able to ask for up to 6% closing costs from the seller. On conventional, up to 3% depending on the down payment. So let's say 3%. On an investment property, 2%. So if the buyer is going to ask the seller for closing costs to compensate their buyer's agent, the question as a lender is, well, is there going to be a ceiling? Is that ceiling going to be lifted? Meaning, can FHA go from 6 to 10%? Conventional go from 3 to 6%? I think that it's going to stay the same as far as the cap on the closing costs from the seller. And I think that it's going to be excluded. The buyer's commission is going to be excluded from that. So I'm hoping that it's going to be all transparent. I mean, it's going to be all transparent, meaning the buyer knows, the listing agent knows exactly how much commission the buyer's going to pay, how much the buyer's going to get, the buyer's agent's going to get commission, and the listing agent. So I believe that on the loan level part, there's going to be something where we're going to find some type of acceptable loophole where the seller is able to still compensate the buyer's agent. I don't believe that it's going to get to that. I mean, the housing is already tough. It's already tough to get people into homes with the prices and inflation, et cetera. You don't want to get bored with all of that already. We've been inundated with that information, but now to prevent buyers from being able to qualify with income, with down payment, with assets, with the stricter guidelines than they had before, but now also having to pay the commission, I don't believe it's going to happen. I believe there's going to be some type of gray area, or hopefully, I mean, I think a clear area where the seller's still going to pay, but it's just going to be more transparent. I'm willing to pay $10,000 commission, and as Paco mentioned, it's not going to be, as he mentioned, it's not going to be, it's not going to be on the MLS, right? So I believe, and I'm hoping that they're not foolish enough to say the buyers really have to come in with this commission, as all of social media is saying.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think it's going to be, you're going to have a few options. So like one scenario is you're going to have a seller that's going to tell the listing agent, look, I'm willing to go up to 4% commission. I'll pay you 3%. Let's keep that 1% in our back pocket.
Right.
Because it's no longer listed. So I can now keep that in my back pocket. And if somebody makes me a strong offer, solid buyer, everything I want, and they're asking for 2%, then we'll counter and say, we'll give you 1% because the seller's already accounted for that, right? So there will be some coming. There'll be a second scenario where the seller's going to tell them straight out, I don't care. I'm not paying them a cent, which is where I think the interesting situation is going to be, because like Mike said, he has to account for all these layers before the buyer goes to even look at this house. Know your numbers, the down payment, how much you qualify, right? But now let's put a scenario to Mike. This is where I think it'll be interesting for the lenders is he qualifies somebody for $800,000. We go look at an $800,000 house. I submit an offer asking for 2% commission. They come back and said, we'll give you the house, 0% commission. Well, that buyer now has to go back to Mike and say, do I have room? How much room do I have to give Paco? Because he only accounted for certain things. So I think there's going to be, he called it transparency. I think there's going to be definitely some negotiations that I think we're going to find out right away, Mike, and I'll tell you why. Because as you and I know, or we've discussed, this is a seller's market. There's no low inventory, and I don't see this changing anytime soon. So when it's a seller's market and the sellers don't have a lot of incentive to offer extra commission or any commission at all, because they're going to get 10 offers, and if 2 of those offers come in full price asking for no commission, their net's going to be higher, that kind of thing. We're going to find out how creative people can get now. Because I think if the market would have been switched where it was a buyer's market and we don't have enough buyers, it wouldn't have mattered. Sellers would have paid that extra commission because they want to sell their house. So I think we're going to kind of find out quickly this year how it's going to play out. What do you think?
Well, it's going to happen until July, right?
Right.
So
that's correct.
So now the clients have a power of choice. You can tailor your services. I'm kind of thinking, well, is an agent going to now start marketing themselves? And instead of changing, hey, how you see on the bandit signs on the freeways, I'll list your home for 1.5%. Is it going to be like, I will find you a home with for 1%, or for $5,000 for $2,500? Is that going to change?
I think it is. I think I already could tell you some people on the East Coast, and one of the calls we were on, they're going to start, now their price points are lower, but they're going to start marketing, we'll represent a buyer for $5,000 flat fee, period. So they're already going to start marketing and get ahead of it and say, I will represent the buyer for a flat fee. I think they were saying Redfin, I think already does something like this. So I think we're going to see a lot of that. The thing about it is at the end, I think it's going to come down to value. How valuable these buyer's agents that only open doors, make an offer, and you never see them again. I think you're going to start seeing the herd start to lean itself out, because if there's no value, you're no longer going to even put yourself. I mean, this is my thinking. If I now have to potentially put skin in the game, am I going to now offer $10,000 to my part-time cousin who doesn't do it full-time and really doesn't know what he's doing because he's my cousin? Or do I now have to go after that specialty of a buyer because I know this is what I do? I don't know. What do you think?
I think the buyer's agents are going to probably take more ownership. There's a lot of open houses that I've witnessed where agents or clients go in and they say, well, I'm the one that's finding the homes myself. I'm the one that's sending the properties to my agent, and my agent just says, go look at them yourself and let me know, and I'll write up the offer.
Yep.
I think now, I mean, I don't think that's fair to the buyer, and also maybe not the listing agent, or the agent at the open house, so to speak. I think the buyer's agents are either going to say, I don't work with buyers at all, or they're just going to give it to someone and do some type of, side,
Deal.
Compensation fee or some type of side deal. But that's very interesting what you're saying. It's $1,000 on the East Coast. That's good that they're getting ahead of it. I mean, and then you're going to see buyers, or also creatively like saying, I will credit you my commission, 50% of my commission for a buy, if I represent you. Well, kind of like what Redfin is doing, Red 35% or whatever it is now. But I think it could be a good thing. Obviously, with anything, any kind of news, there's room for anyone to complain. But I think the fastest that you adjust to it, the faster you adjust. It's coming, and stop complaining. We don't get any money off of complaining. We just have to adjust, adapt, and pivot quickly, and be ready for those changes. I mean, just be glad that they didn't. Like, let's say right now, as an agent, if you sign a buyer broker agreement, that buyer has to stay with you, and they owe you commission if they go with someone else. On the listing side, same thing. List, they go with someone else, they can't. They're contractually obligated to stay with you. And as a lender, the client, we could be working with the lender for years, and they could drop us for $5 if they want to. So at least that they kept intact. So as long as you, as an agent, keep your professionalism at the highest, your integrity, and really diligently work hard, it should work out. Of course, there's some clients that are just really difficult, but there's a silver lining at the end of this. Once we get through it, and it's going to happen in July, then I guess the adjustments are going to be maybe first quarter of next year, when everybody says, hey, well, this is a new normal.
Yeah. No, but you know what? You bring up a valid point, because you're right. As a lender, you could do all the work, prep the PQ, get them in escrow, do everything. Then they go on to some company online who offers them a $5 discount, and all of a sudden they're like, Mike, we're going to go with this lender.
Yeah.
And what you're saying is, from a buyer standpoint, now there's an agreement, because you're absolutely right. How many clients do we know that you were showing houses to, and then they went with another agent because they just happened to show them a different house? They didn't care. They didn't care what agent it was. They just wanted to get in the house. That's going to stop that. It'll be interesting. I don't think it's a bad thing, to be very clear. I think the quality of Realtor needs to change. And I think this is one of those things that's going to force the riffraff to either change or just leave. So I'm hoping that's what happens, but it will be interesting times. But I will say this, there's a lot of unknown and a lot of brokers freaking out right now, especially the big ones that have 100 buyer agents. What are you going to do now? So, but I appreciate the feedback on the loans, because I think that's the biggest unknown for me. I think on the buyer's agent contract and all that, I kind of think that'll work itself out. To me, the big unknown is always the loan. How does that come into play? Like you said, if you feel they're not going to change, there's going to be an exemption of some kind like that. When do you think we would know that? How do you think that would come about?
Well, hopefully before July. Hopefully the agencies, I mean, this news came out today, so we're getting flooded with all this information. So they take a while to adapt. I mean, it's March, so hopefully they have at least a full 90 days to figure something out and be able to repackage, sell these loans. I mean, at the end of the day, it's the servicers. They have to be able to and willing to buy these loans. So is that going to change the investor's mind, the appetite for the investors to purchase some loans? Is Fannie going to allow it and Freddie not? Is FHA going to be flexible? Is VA going to allow that? You know, a VA already has non-allowables. So I'm thinking if they have the clients pay for the realtor's commission, buyer's commission, how many people are going to be able to afford that? So I'm thinking, hoping, anticipating, crossing my fingers and praying that it's going to be exempt. And it's not going to, I mean, not that you're getting a lot of closing costs now, but that's the next step. Well, you know what? I'll just ask the seller to compensate the buyer's agent. But is that going to be factored into, there's certain tests on loans that it can't go above a certain cost analysis, that if the cost of the title, escrow, prepaids, points go up above a certain amount, it's not an eligible loan to be closed. So I believe that category, as far as a buyer's commission, is going to be exempt and not affect the APR, so to speak, of the loan. So right now it's time to innovate your practice and just adapt as fast as possible, you know, and leverage these changes to your advantage.
Well said, my friend. Well said. Well, I appreciate Mike. Mike is with Integrity Home Finance. Mike, tell us a little about you, your company, and where you're at, and all the good stuff.
Integrity Home Finance was born in 2003. So I'm happy and proud to say that we have been in business for over 20 years and went through a lot of ups and downs, but it's been consistent. Most of our business, 99% of our business, is realtor referral based. So I'm the owner, operator, manager of this business. We're a broker, direct lender, and we can broker as well.
Good.
So,
go ahead, Mike.
I know Paco for a long time, and he won't admit this, but I used to strike him out in T-ball. T-ball.
Yes, he did. And me and were never on the same team. Were you on? Wait, we were on the A's together, weren't we?
No, I think I was on the Padres.
Yes, I was on the A's. So since he brings up baseball, since I'm the one that has the control over here to end the meeting, I'm gonna end on this. So part of the tryouts in baseball, Mike might not remember this, but part of the tryouts in baseball, when we went from Little League to whatever that Pony League, 13, 14, I forgot whatever that age group is. And part of it was that they train you on running the bases from home all the way around. And I had already ran it. And, you know, I was always short, so I wasn't the quickest. And Mike started running, and I made a derogatory comment to his immigration status on that he should run faster. And I just remember, I always remember he's rounding third because we were by the dugout. And as he's rounding third, he's running, and Mike was a lot faster than I was. As he's looking at me, because almost like, I can't believe you just said that. So there you go.
I remember that. I was a DACA runner.
What's that?
I was a DACA runner.
Yes. So I thought it was pretty funny at the time, but then the Mike gave me that look like, dude, this wasn't the time or the place to say it. And I was like, maybe it wasn't. So, all right, Mike, I appreciate it. I'm hoping that maybe in the next month, I can have one with you, one of these, and updates whenever you have them. Maybe they come sooner or later, and then just update people, because I anticipate that if our industry, and you and I do this full time, this is how we feed our family, we're experts in this. If we're trying to figure out this, can you only imagine the future buyers and sellers, what they're thinking is going to happen or not happen? So to me, there's going to be a lot of confusion going forward until we can clarify, is my point.
Imagine, yes, thank you for bringing that up, because imagine the regular consumer that doesn't know, and all they're getting inundated with is there's a settlement. Buyers have to pay commission. Forget it. The person that was on the fence is going to get off the fence and go back to the other block. They're not going to get on the block and get over the fence again until us as professionals explain this thoroughly to them.
Yep. Or they're going to rush into the market for the next 3 months and buy before July 1st because they think that's what they're going to need to do. But we can have a whole nother call regarding, how that's going to be worked in, because sellers can work it in with the price and other stuff. But that's a conversation for a different day. So anyways, Mike, I appreciate it, buddy. We'll be